Well, indeed, it's a privilege for anyone from my side of the fence to be addressing a gathering like this, because as Sanjeev very rightly pointed out, we rarely get an occasion to speak with you from the other side of the table. Now, but the question is, we are talking about collaboration between bureaucrats and legislators. Why are we talking about collaboration? I mean, are we talking about it because it is not there, or we want to bring in collaboration? There is an absence which speaks of the presence of this particular lack of collaboration. Are we in an adversarial relationship? The need of the hour today is to examine this question. And if we are in an adversarial relationship, why? Unless we address that question, the acrimony that arises out of the the interaction between these two wings of the polity, that will not be addressed. Now, I just have one, I will give you one example of what, can happen, what is possible. Think of Japan, for example, after the Second World War. It had been completely devastated. It had been completely devastated. Its economy had been devastated. Its society had been messed around with thanks to all the military presence post the Second World War. But what happened? There was a certain desire amongst the people of Japan to rebuild themselves. And how did they rebuild themselves? Within less than 30 years, they had, in 1964, the bullet train running. They had several other major innovations in industry, and they were soon on the way to becoming one of the leading economies in the world. But I mean, this all sounds very good to look at, to hear about from a distance. When you go and observe that society, then you realize that we are looking at a society which is essentially very, very highly disciplined. But where does that discipline come from? Who induces that discipline? Who, if at all, enforces that discipline? I believe that discipline is not enforced. There's a certain nationalistic, fervor about it. So the point that I'm trying to veer around to is that, the discourse, I mean, you will have to pardon me for saying this, but the discourse in our country today has become somewhat stagnant. Has become somewhat stagnant in the sense that we are just beating around the bush, trying to solve our problems in our typical traditional ways. Whereas our own traditional wisdom, gives us some of the solutions which we have not really tried looking at. Now, for example, the economy. Now, what should be our priority? Where do we invest in our economy? Where do we invest in our society? Spreading ourselves too thin becomes a no-brainer. So, when you talk about investment in education, then we must concentrate on it. Many years ago, one of my friends who's a professor in Singapore, he's a Singaporean national, he told me, do you know what is the problem with India? What has been the problem with India? In his own analysis, I mean, you may agree with it or you may not agree with it. He said, you tell me, what is your analysis? I said, and he said, when we were building our primary schools in our country and middle schools, you were building your IITs and IIMs. Meaning, we were not giving that kind of priority over, we were not giving that kind of priority to our school education. So today we are still trying to mop up the residues of old mistakes that we committed in the past, and especially, I mean, coming from Bihar, I know what I mean. Sanjay ji is here; he would agree with me. I mean, the quality of school education, you know, it's really something which we need to think about. So, what I'm saying is that the discourse has become stagnant. By that, I mean that our discourse has to be far more knowledge focused. And it is in that domain that the legislators and the bureaucrats can contribute together. We are talking about collaboration because, we are talking across, we most of the time talk across the table. I'm not talking about within the parliament or in the legislature, but when we do interact, we talk across the table. What I am suggesting is that we should be talking around the table, put a certain theme or subject on the table and talk about it, talk amongst ourselves, bureaucrats and legislators together, because if we are talking about a constituency for legislators, the constituency might be in terms of numbers, but for bureaucrats also there's a constituency, because if you have a conscience, then that constituency feeds you with a certain amount of satisfaction, a reasonable amount of self-respect it gives you if you serve that constituency. So you have to immure yourselves out of the domain of materiality in one sense, and allow a little bit of spirituality into your thought processes. Only then can we sort of go beyond some of these impediments that we are facing in our growth towards becoming a great nation. I mean, not that we're not a great nation, but I'm not sort of saying that we should not be doing anything more towards making it greater, whatever it is. So when we look at some of our problems, if we have a knowledge-based society, the solutions that come, the suggestions that come will be far more informed, far more practical, and will be based on a larger domain of knowledge that comes from across the world, that comes from various situations that different nations have faced in the past. So it's really the need of the hour that our discourse becomes far more informed and is also in a way capable of fending off certain questions which have been raised on our progress, on the way we have progressed over the last 75 years. There's been a constitutional framework, but beyond the constitutional framework, the constitutional framework of democracy, beyond that, if we look at it in very bare terms, so-called electoral democracy is an autocracy of 51 over 49. So we need to really rethink the way we run our democracy, because unless we create a completely inclusive society, we will not be able to deliver what many other nations who have all the wherewithal with them have been able to deliver. For us, it will be very difficult in the first place to be able to get all that wherewithal together without taking everyone together. But if we continue to have this discourse, we continue to have this dialogue, I'm sure all kinds of solutions are possible. And when I talked about traditional wisdom, I had this very famous saying in mind that it said that एक ही साध है सब सद है सब साध है सब जाए. So get hold of one thing at a time. If you want to stress on education, primary education, middle school education, get the best quality out of it and get everyone educated at least to that level. and see what it does, what miracles it can do to your society and to your economy also. Similarly, in the economic sphere, in the industrial sphere, let's talk about small manufacturing. Small manufacturing, take it across the entire country, not some concentration in some geographical entities, some geographical units, and other places remain blank. Not like that. Small manufacturing can be very evenly spread across the entire country. And then you see the kind of result it produces. So one can sort of go on and on about some of these examples, but anyway, I know I'm exceeding my time limit. I, once again, in the end, would like to express my gratitude, not just to MIT and to this convention, but also to Honorable Chairman for giving me this opportunity to speak before you. Thank you.